Alright, you guys, real quick before the video does start, I want to give a shout out to Everyday Sports Mania. Recently, his channel has been struggling, and Everyday Sports Mania has been a really big supporter of the channel for a long time. He asked for a shout out, and I thought why not be nice and give it to him, especially since he has been a really big supporter of this channel for a long time. So go ahead and check him out. The link to his channel will be in the description below. But with that being said, hope you guys enjoyed today's video. The Los Angeles Chargers concluded a 7-9 season this past year. They enjoyed an all-time great rookie season from their quarterback Justin Herbert. They got a really bright future, and today I wanted to talk about this team and what's next for them. But before we do get started, if you guys enjoyed today's video, make sure to hit the like button as it really helps out the channel. Make sure to also subscribe if you guys are new and enjoy the content on here so you don't miss out on any new videos. We are also on the road to 500 subscribers, and it would mean a lot to me if we could reach that goal. As a special, I will also react to my first 2 videos ever, so if you guys want to see that and enjoy the videos on here, make sure to subscribe. But with that being said, let's get started. And let's open up by talking about the roster, and what better player to start out with than Justin Herbert. And Justin Herbert, as I said before, had an all-time great rookie season, as he broke the record for the most passing touchdowns by a rookie quarterback ever, and he didn't win Offensive Rookie of the Year for no reason. I mean, the guy was flat out amazing, with 4,336 passing yards, 31 touchdowns, completing 67% of his passes, and on the ground he had 234 yards and 5 touchdowns. Justin Herbert was flat out amazing, and if he can keep on playing like this, I mean, all I can say is he's just going to be an amazing player for this team, and they got to do a good job of building around him, and if they can do that, they're just going to have a really bright future with him. Not much else I really have to say for Justin Herbert. Austin Eckler is the next player I want to talk about, and Austin Eckler, unfortunately, he dealt with injuries this past season, and because of that, he did play in a limited amount of games. Sorry about that. But anyways, even then, he's still a pretty good running back, as he's a really good receiving back, and he's also a solid rusher, as he had 530 rushing yards, one rushing touchdown, averaging 5 yards a carry. And he also had 403 receiving yards, along with 2 receiving touchdowns. Keenan Allen is the next player I want to talk about, and Keenan Allen is one of the best receivers in the NFL. Now, statistically, he did have a down year, as the guy was 8 yards away from reaching the 1,000 yard mark. But even then, he had 992 receiving yards, 8 receiving touchdowns, along with catching 68% of his targets. All I can say is that Justin Herbert's really going to enjoy Keenan Allen, as Keenan Allen, he's amazing. I mean, he's just a really good player. How else do I put it? I mean, he's this team's #1 receiver, and I see him being the #1 receiver for the foreseeable future. Up next, I want to talk about Mike Williams. And Mike Williams, well, he's not anything crazy, but he's still a pretty solid #2 receiver next to Keenan Allen, as he had 756 receiving yards, 5 receiving touchdowns, and he got 56.5% of his targets. Hunter Henry is the next player I want to talk about, and Hunter Henry is a pretty good receiving tight end, and while he's not on the Travis Kelce and George Kittle level, he's still a pretty good player, and he's a free agent that they definitely want to bring back. And this past season, he had 613 receiving yards, 4 receiving touchdowns, and he caught 64.5% of his targets. Moving on to the defensive side of the ball, I want to talk about Joey Bosa. And Joey Bosa had a pretty good year, and while the guy did have a down year in terms of stats when it comes to sacks and the pressures, he was down in those categories. But even then, he's still a good player, as the guy is a good pass rusher, along with being a really good run stopper. He had 7.5 sacks, along with 45 pressures this past season. Melvin Ingram is the next player I want to talk about, and him and Joey Bosa, when they're healthy, form one of the best pass rushing duos in the NFL. Now, Melvin Ingram hardly played this year, so I'm not going to show any stats, as there really isn't a lot of stats to show from Melvin Ingram this past year. But next year, if he is healthy, I expect him to have a pretty good year. And Hayward is the next player I want to talk about, and in my opinion, Casey Hayward has been one of the most underrated cornerbacks over the past few years, as I believe in 2016 he led the league in interceptions, and this year he was pretty productive as he had 1 interception and 8 passes defended. Chris Harris is the next player I want to talk about. Now, this is not the same prime Denver Broncos Chris Harris, but even then, he's still a pretty decent player, as in 9 games, he had 1 interception along with 2 passes defended. And while that's not crazy, he did just play 9 games, and even then, he's not a bad player at all. He's still pretty productive and solid player. And the final player I want to talk about is Derwin James. Now, Derwin James did not play this past season, and over the past 2 seasons, he struggled to stay healthy. After an amazing rookie year where he actually made an all-pro team, well, up in 2019, he only played 5 games, and this past year, he didn't even play at all. And now, hopefully, Derwin James can remain healthy, as when he's healthy, he is one of the best safeties in the NFL. Anyways, that will wrap it up for the roster. And the Chargers, as we know, as we can probably tell, they have a pretty decently talented team. They are really good on paper on both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively. And while the offensive side of the ball played well, the defense was disappointing. And while having Derwin James out a majority of the year sure did not help them, they were still disappointing on that side of the ball. Now, maybe it's a defensive court. Maybe it's like the fact that they lost guys like, Melvin Ingram and Derwin James were not playing a good amount of the year, so that could be a reason why. But who knows? They gotta definitely get that defense to be pretty good, since I think we know how good of a defense that can be when they're all healthy, as they really do have the talent to make that one of the best defenses in the NFL. Maybe it's a defensive coordinator change. Either way, they definitely should do what they can to make that defense, the best it can be, along with to the point where it doesn't necessarily hurt the offensive side of the ball, and to the point where they can bring back, good free agents. Now, as we know, they did fire Anthony Lynn, and I think a lot of us can agree, especially Chargers fans, that it was the right move, as the guy was not a good coach. He didn't really trust Justin Herbert that much, and he had a really bad habit when it came to blowing leads, and was really holding back the team. I mean, they could have been 11-5 if they didn't blow so many leads. There's like 4 games where if they didn't blow the leads, they could have won those games. I mean, it really does suck to know that you could have been 11-5, but because of, his terrible coaching, well, they ended up being 7-9. But even then, there's always next year, you know what I mean? Anyways, Brandon Staley, they hired him from the Rams, and he definitely does seem like a pretty good, he can be a really good coach for this team, as I believe he was the defensive coordinator of the Rams for the 2020 NFL season. And if he is a good coach, this team could be really good in 2021, as they already have a lot of talent on this roster, and if a good coach can put this all together, they can definitely be, I have no doubts in my mind, they can be a playoff team, especially considering the fact that they could have been 12-4 as a good amount of their losses. 5 of their losses were 1-possession games. And if Brandon Staley is good enough, this team could be really good. However, all teams have their weaknesses, all teams have their weaknesses. And the Chargers really do need to improve some things on their roster. First off, they could really improve the offensive line, plus the run defense. Now, they will have $33 million in cap space, and that is pretty good, and that is really going to help them a lot. Now, they can always clear up some cap space, and if they were to cut Linval Joseph, who really wasn't productive, in the limited action he saw this past season, they could get $41 million in cap space, and that should be enough to, upgrade the roster, along with bring back a good amount of their important free agents. Their priorities, aside from, bringing back important free agents like Hunter Henry and Melvin Ingram and probably Denzel Perryman, well, it should be addressing the offensive line, as they really do need to protect Justin Herbert. I mean, if you watch that Super Bowl, you know how important an offensive line is to a quarterback. So they really do need to bring back those guys, along with improve the offensive line. I would also try and patch up some holes at cornerback and linebacker, plus maybe get another receiver to help that receiving core be the best it can be. Now, some guys they can target in free agency could be guys like Trent Williams, Joe Tooney, Brandon Scherf, Austin Blythe, Alex Mack to all help that offensive line, along with guys like Corey Linsley and David Andrews. Jared Cook would not be a bad replacement if Hunter Henry does walk. And while the guy is aging, I mean, he would be a nice short-term replacement as he's a pretty solid tight end. And if they want to go out and improve the receiving core, there's guys like Corey Davis, who had a really good year for the Titans this past year. Will Fuller is also pretty good when healthy. And Juju Smith-Schuster, I think if he's delegated to a number 2 receiver, which if you ask me is his perfect role, he could have a really good year like how he did in 2018. And if they want to improve the linebacking core, guys like Leonard Floyd and Matt Judon would not be bad at all. Leonard Floyd had a really good year for the Rams. Now, they should not overpay him, as the guy did have one good season, and there is a chance that the guy does flop after getting a big contract. And if they want to improve the corner positions, which they can always use some work at that position, Xavier Rhodes, Mike Hilton, and William Jackson would not be bad options to help improve the corner position. Now, they will obviously not get all of those guys, but if I were the Chargers, I would address the offensive line in free agency, along with bringing back important guys. Hopefully you can bring back Hunter Henry, at least for them. And maybe then I'd also shore up that defense, like improve the linebacker positions and improve the cornerback positions. Now, they will also own the 13th pick in this year's draft. And they should really just look to improve any weaknesses with that pick. And it's most likely going to be an offensive lineman. Now, if they do improve the offensive line up to the point where they really don't need an offensive lineman, then go ahead and take someone else. Now, some draft targets I think they should take would be Rashawn Slater out of, I believe, Northwestern. Christian Darrisaw would not be bad at all. Jalen Waddle, if you've improved your offensive line enough to the point where you don't need one, and to really just help that receiving core. And Kyle Pitts, if he's available, I doubt he is available. In the event of Hunter Henry leaving and Kyle Pitts is available, go ahead and take him, because this guy is an amazing prospect. But really, that will kind of wrap up today's video. And to really just end the video, I guess, the Chargers do have a really bright future with Justin Herbert at the helm. If they can address the offensive line and make it better, along with just improve the team in general by shoring up the receiving core, bring back important free agents, and patch up some holes on the defensive side of the ball, and the coaching is all good, they could do some big things in the 2021 NFL season. But with that being said, that will wrap up today's video. If you guys enjoyed, make sure you hit that like button, as it really helps out the channel and it shows your support for this content. Subscribe if you guys are new and enjoy the videos on here so you don't miss out on any new vids. And we're also on the road to 500 subscribers, and it would mean a lot to me if we could reach that goal. As a special, I will react to my first 2 videos ever, so if you guys want to see that and enjoy the content on here, make sure to subscribe. But with that being said, I'm out, you guys.